Hi, this is a demo on CoreMotion, the CoreMotion framework new classes that are involved. So we'll talk about step counting, and we'll also talk about motion activities. I have a very simple interface. I have called this little app Step Counter. I have two buttons, Start Counting and Stop Counting, and then I have a label Current Motion and Steps Taken, and there will be labels that will be populated with that information. In my view controller, I have these properties so that I can change the enabled properties of our two buttons. I've made them properties as well. And then I have a CM step counter property here called counter, and then I have two actions that correspond to my buttons, start count and stop count. All right, so let's look at view did load first. As we look at view did load, the first thing we want to do is disable the stop button because we don't want to stop counting before we start counting. Then we check to see if our motion activity types are enabled on this device. And if they are not, we want to just alert that out and then exit. But if they are, we want to instantiate a motion manager. So we do that here, CM Motion Activity Manager, calling it Motion Manager, alloc and initted. That gives us a Motion Manager class. And then we want to start sending updates. So this is Motion Manager, start activity updates to queue. And I'm just using the main queue here. And then with handler, and here's our motion handler. And I'm just checking each status. These are all Boolean properties. So if it's stationary, we're just going to set that labels text to stationary and so forth. In the case of automotive, we set it to driving. Otherwise, we just set it to a string equal to whatever the Boolean property name is. Now, otherwise, again, if we aren't able to detect motion activity on the device, such as the simulator, or any non-iOS 7 device, any device that does not have an M7 processor, then we want to alert the user to that effect. So we say, alert, this device cannot detect motion activities. Then we show the alert. We've also adopted the UI Alert View Delegate protocol so that after we fire that alert up, we want to just exit. So alert view clicked button at index. We don't need the button index. We know that the alert views here only have the OK button, so we're just going to exit the app itself. All right. So now let's look and see what happens with start count. The first thing we want to do, again, is check to see if step counting is enabled on the device. The device has passed the first check. In other words, motion activities are available. Now we want to see if step counting is available. So if CM step counter is step counting available, we want to disable this button and enable the stop button, which we do in this little code here. We know how to do this. Then we set up a CM step counter object. So again, we don't actually set up the object unless we have availability. So we have a property that's a CM step counter, self.counter. We alloc and init the object, and that gives us a nice counter here. And now we begin counting steps using the start step counting updates to queue message. Again, here I'm using the main queue. I'm going to send an update to the main queue every time the user takes a step. This may or may not be a good idea. We may want to count every 10 steps, or every 100, or every 1,000 steps, or so forth. Whatever number you decide for your app that makes the most sense, you'll pass it in here on the update on. And then with handler, and then we're going to get a number of steps back and a timestamp or an error code, and an error code. That error code may be nil, but that's fine, we'll handle it. Here we're just printing out the number of steps and a new line, and then we set the label steps text to a string formatted with the number of steps. Now, if we don't have step counting available, again, we'll alert. and we'll show that alert, and then the delegate method alert view will be called exiting the app. All right. Stop count works in a very similar way. It's extremely simple. We enable this button, or we disable the stop button, we enable the counting button, and then we stop counting updates by sending the stop step counting updates message to the counter. So that's it. That's all we have to do. So we can see that checking the type of motion that the device is undergoing and counting the user's steps that's holding a device while they're walking or running is extremely simple to do in concept. The app that you embed all of this stuff in might be very complex indeed. You might have a jogging app or something like that that tracks the user's availability as far as what they're doing at any given time. But the process for actually setting up, counting steps, detecting device motion is very simple indeed. So now again, when we run this, since we're running in the simulator, we will only see that the device cannot detect motion activities, and then we click OK, and the app exits. Thank you very much.